I think it's important that if you ever find yourself disagreeing strongly with a video from a YouTuber you usually have common ground with, that you voice what rubbed you the wrong way as loudly as possible. That being said, I'm going to try and not be so harsh on Pariah here. He makes great content and I normally find myself enjoying his videos. This video is bad. And I don't say that because of Pariah's opinion on the Sonic canon. I think you can appreciate and understand the thought process of opinions you disagree with if a video itself is able to present a somewhat compelling argument. And I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea here. I myself have been on the receiving end of videos that were just not really well received because of how I presented them. But my problem with Pariah's video is this underlying tone of condescension and superiority that is paired with an argument that is so fundamentally fallacious. Alright, so let's go through some of the video and I'll explain exactly what I find wrong with it.
This video is an intervention.
Already, this tone, I don't like it. He's calling it an intervention.
Intervention for the Sonic community. Because it's very, very evident that the people making Sonic don't actually care about this. And that is...
You see, you could make this argument, like maybe even a year ago, but I think there has been a change in how they're approaching Sonic canon, and it's kind of obvious from, you know, Tails Tube and Frontiers attempting to mush everything together for it to make sense. They're trying, it may seem pretentious, but they are trying to establish some sense of continuity in the franchise.
There has been a lot of discussion among Sonic fans about the canon of Sonic, almost to like an obsessive degree. I am seeing so many people talk about the canon constantly. But when it comes to Sonic stories, they have never cared about preserving canon. They just do whatever the hell they want without thinking about it, and then when there are contradictions and errors after the fact, they come up with some sort of BS explanations to try to make it all make sense. Up all of the bullshit explanations you want to explain. Instead of making up some crap about humans exist on the continents or whatever, I would much prefer if they were just honest with us and they just came out and said, we don't want humans existing in Sonic anymore, so we're just never gonna mention them. Just say it, just be honest.
The thesis of Pariah's video seems to be that there is no point in caring about the Sonic canon because the decisions that affect the narrative choices of Sonic games are dictated by branding and marketing alone, and that by proxy, what is and isn't canon is ultimately inconsistent and irrelevant, because it does not matter to Sonic Team / Sega and the higher-ups working on the Sonic titles. And he's not entirely wrong. By simple observation, we can tell that many a times the narratives are being driven by desired iconography and branding. But my problem is Pariah insists that this is the sole factor in the development of the Sonic canon, and that it has always been like this, and even worse, Sonic fans by and large do not understand this. I find this incredibly offensive because you're treating the fandom as if the vast majority of people engaging in canon discussion aren't already aware of the consistently inconsistent canon of the Sonic series. You're not smarter than them because of this basic observational point that I guarantee you most of them have already come to the conclusion long ago. Sonic fans know that there has been little to no regard for canon continuity in the past. Sonic fans know that there are several inconsistencies stemming from the franchise constantly rebranding itself. The people who are invested in the Sonic canon are not stupid, and I don't understand why the crutch of this video's argument insists so. And no, this was not always the case. The Sonic series has not been inconsistent from day one. That is a lie. While the Sonic franchise has always been dictated by branding and such, there was a clear effort to give some form of explanation and justification for changes. Pariah actually brings up an example of this in Eggman's change of name from the Genesis titles to Adventure 1, and he completely misinterprets the intention under the assumption that the change is solely for the sake of brand unification. This is not true. Around this time, the Sonic games had begun placing emphasis on light continuity. Continuity that did not alienate newcomers, but enhanced the experience for people who had played the previous games. creating this sense of continuity that would invest older players in subsequent titles. There are quite a few examples of this in Sonic Adventure. And Sonic Adventure 2 continues this, but the continuity between 1 and 2 is very light as to not alienate newcomers. From Sonic 3 and Knuckles to Sonic 06, there was a semblance of continuity, mostly because of the light story threads that carried ideas from one game to another. Gun debuts in Sonic Adventure 2, so once they appear again in Sonic 06, players can safely assume that these games have some form of continuity between them. And that isn't to say one shouldn't be critical of the inconsistency in the canon. That's not my point. My point is that it is extremely disingenuous to say that the canon is complete BS or that it has been inconsistent from the very beginning. Pariah does make a good point about people overvaluing canon as opposed to good stories, and I definitely think that that is true. Way too many people use canon as a means of validating whether a story is worth their time or not, and this should not be the case. You'd think in this day and age of multiverse stories that people would learn to allow different interpretations of existing characters to thrive, but there is clearly something about a game or TV show or comic book being canon that validates it in the mind of oh so many Sonic fans. But that's a discussion for another time. It is so bizarre to me that Pariah's video is essentially asking you to not give a shit about aspects of a franchise that have only begun to be relevant because people had cared for so long. But he doesn't perceive these attempts to canonize the entire franchise under one umbrella as a genuine attempt by Sonic Team and the people that work there to unify and explain all the inconsistencies. He sees it as a way to shut people up when it comes to the discussion of these inconsistencies, which is kind of ironic considering that's what he's doing in this very video. This is such a needlessly cynical take on the direction of continuity, because if there's one thing that Sonic Team is good at, it's hearing feedback. And I understand that corporations are corporations at the end of the day, but why would they even bother to put in any effort to canonize these different elements of Sonic when they could just easily ignore it? And once again, Pariah insisting that people should not care about the canon seems to completely disregard that people caring about the canon is a major reason why there is even an attempt to keep consistency today. If you shouldn't care about an element of a franchise because it's solely dictated by branding, which isn't even the case with canon, then every shipper should pretty much just pack it up and leave. Because we know that because of a brand, we'll never see any of these characters in a serious romantic relationship. In fact, everyone who comes up with concepts for Adventure 3 or a potential Sonic 5 or Sonic Advance 4 should just give up because we know it's never going to happen. People who love discussing about the canon and what is and isn't canon and how to fit everything perfectly into said canon like the discussion because they find it fun. It's no different than discussing theories. A majority of fans know that the canon is broken and messy, but it's still fun to try and piece together. And why would they want to give all of that up right now when it finally seems the creators of these games are taking said canon seriously? And you know what? I don't even care about the Sonic canon. I don't spend time theorizing about what is and isn't canon, and similar to Pariah, I wish the Sonic games did have a closer sense of continuity, but I have simply accepted that that's not going to happen.
You can tell me that all three of those things, no, they're definitely all canon to each other, but I don't give a shit because I have a functioning brain and I know that in the iteration of Sonic that has the fucking Deadly Six, they would never, ever, ever allow something like the Black Arms to exist. And if it can't be allowed to exist in the same world, then it doesn't exist in the same world.
But what I'm not going to do is view myself as superior to the other people who do care about the canon. I'm not going to upload an obnoxiously cynical video making fun of people who have justified reasons for engaging with the franchise differently, and I'm not going to imply that said people are stupid, because that's kind of awful. And I think the last thing the Sonic fandom needs at this point in time is this kind of content.
There's links to my Patreon and Ko-fi in the description.
That was exhausting. Oh god, the description. Apologies for coming off so aggressively in this video, but I don't like being lied to. I'm not an idiot. I see right through everything they do, and it's so annoying. Boy, I'm so cynical. Why can't I just be a brain-dead consumer? seems like it's a much easier and enjoyable. Sorry, seems like it's much easier and more enjoyable. Oh well. Goodness. My goodness. This is... I shouldn't have read the description. I don't know why I did. But saying that the people who are engaging in this discussion are brain dead consumers, God, you're such... This is so condescending. This is so condescending. If I was a Canon obsessed Sonic fan and I came to this video, I would leave immediately, because it is so clear that Pariah has no respect for the people who he wants to criticize in this video. And I don't know. The whole video was just... Ugh. It was whatever. I'm leaving. I'm done.